Hey guys! It's been a while, hasn't it? So, how are you all? I'm tired but still functionable. Welcome to my channel. For anyone new to the channel, nice to see you here with us. I post anime what if videos either never heard before, or reboot into a more clear audio. Today we are doing what if Asta was in My Hero Academia. Asta Kurosaki was said to be quirkless like his friend, Izuku Midoriya, but that didn't stop him from trying to be the first quirkless hero. But once the two enter UA, everyone, including Asta himself, will learn that he does have a quirk, a power that's equally as powerful, but just as mysterious as One for All. Izuku x Ochako and Asta x Harem. If you like this video and want to see more, make sure to like and subscribe to see more anime what if stories. The next day of UA arrived, and it went about how Izuku and Asta expected it to go. There were regular classes that are required in the morning like English. And while most students groan in boredom since they kinda hoped for some action, some students, like Asta, Izuku, Momo, and Tenya, understood why they were having such classes. This school is also meant to give students an education, after all. Now then, which of these English sentences is wrong? After Class 1A's English teacher, Present Mike, asked this question, he noticed that most of the students were bored, so he thought he could turn it up by getting more enthusiastic with a grin. Come on, everybody. Heads up. Let's get this party started. Hearing that only made most of the students gain beady eyes for Present Mike. Izuku has an idea of what sentence needs to be fixed, but from the corner of his eye, he saw Asta with an attentive expression raising his hand in the speed of a bullet, a speed that some of the students couldn't quite get over yet for someone like him. Okay, Kurosaki, come on. All eyes were on Asta as he began to speak his answer. Sentence number 4 can be corrected if the two words that and all traded places, fixing the relative pronoun. Very good, Kurosaki. Izuku smiled for his best friend when he got the question right. As the class continued, Izuku was able to get another English problem with a few more answered by Momo and Fumikage. So far, it was exactly like high school for the students. And while some are more impatient than others, they knew that eventually, hero-related activities will come up very soon in the afternoon. And while most are hyped up for it, Asta and Izuku made sure to be prepared for what's to come, as a hero is to expect the unexpected. After English and other classes like math and modern literature were taken care of, with Asta and Izuku doing just fine in them so far, the lunch hour has now begun. It took place at the main cafeteria, where they can buy gourmet food for reasonable prices. Oddly enough, the place was called Lunch Rush despite the students having plenty of time to eat. /just/in/j/community/communities/forum/more the duo of best friends invited Ochako, Tenya, Ijiro, Tsuyu, and Mina to sit with them as they were approaching the line to get their food, and upon eye contact at their choices, the students' jaws drop what they can describe being a glorious sight to behold. Holy cow! Look at how delicious this stuff is! Asta exclaims with stars in his eyes as he scanned the food. It looks like it was crafted in the most expensive restaurants in existence. Yeah! Izuku agrees with Ijiro and Mina nodding with Asta. I don't even know what to choose. While the group of friends was picking out what they'd like to eat, another group of students can be seen having already bought their meals conversing with one another. The group consists of one girl with teal eyes and long orange hair tied into a high ponytail. A boy with dark shaggy hair and dark lazy-looking eyes, another boy with a muscular build, messy gray hair, black eyes, and a face that can almost be comparable to Ijiro's, a girl with honey brown hair and a mushroom-shaped bob, appearing to be a bit shy because of her bangs hiding her eyes, another girl with long green vine-like hair and dark green eyes, and lastly, another girl with cerulean eyes and shoulder-length, bob-shaped black hair. And among those students, a familiar dark green-haired girl can also be seen conversing with her classmates. And while she was having a good time with them, she can't help but think about the entrance exams every moment or two before picking up on a few of her friends' conversations. During that time, Setsuna thought about how it went down. During the exam, all she did to secure her place in the school was to save enough people that looked like they needed help and take down a lot of one-pointers and a handful of two-pointers thanks to the speed of her body parts carrying blunt weapons because of her quirk. And while she was glad that she was able to get a passable grade, she believed that she could do better with her quirk than she did on that day and that she needed to experiment with it more. Heck, There was a part of her that wished the performance she did in that exam was how it went down the last time she took a hero exam. Back when she was once a recommended student before failing it, making her take the actual entrance exam for UA incredible. Suddenly, Setsuna's thoughts were cut off when she heard a familiar voice shouting in ecstasy. Lifting her head up and facing forward, the dark green-haired girl gasps with widened eyes when she sees a certain gray-blonde boy chugging down his meal with some students sitting with him watching in awe at the speed he was consuming it. The only exception to those reactions was Izuku, as he has seen Asta consume foods and treats at such a pace. Seriously. Asta continues in between each fast bite of his meal. This. Nom. Rice. Nom. Is. Nom. Out of. Nom. This world. Please slow down, Asta. Tenya says in worry. If you eat it all at once, you're going to dash ULP. Choke. Tenya finishes as Asta did just that, scaring Ijiro, Mina, Izuku, Achiko, and Tsuyu. The gray-blonde boy pounded his fist against his chest in order to get the clump of rice to go down properly, but it proved futile no matter how hard he punched. Asta. Quickly. Izuku shouts as he hands him a bottle of water. Without hesitation, Asta grabs the bottle, unscrews the cap with a single slap, and quickly takes 5 gulps of the hydrating liquid before withdrawing his mouth with a deep sigh. Phew. Thanks for that, Izuku. Izuku nods at Asta with a sigh of relief of his own before Tenya addresses the gray blonde while making a karate chop motion with his hand. See, Asta? You need to be more careful with how you eat. He's right, Asta-kun, Achiko chimes in. I like the food too, but it's not worth killing yourself to shovel in every single bit of it. Asta chuckles with 3 horizontal lines for each eye while Tsuyu tilts her head at him with a finger on her lips. You've got a rather strong appetite, Asta-chan. Naturally, Asta replies before smiling with closed eyes. For a hero must have the necessary nourishment to be at their best. While Tsuyu was taken aback by that same kind smile she saw at the entrance exams, Mina just gushed at it with her hands on her cheeks as she sat across from him at the table. Asta-kun is so cute when he smiles like that as she watched the group of friends continue to chat with each other. Setsuna kept her softened eyes on Asta. With her cheeks turning pink, her stare never left the boy with the black headband that saved her from a robot ambush. Asta-kun. You actually made it, the reptile girl thought before smiling with her cheeks turning a bit redder. I'm so glad you got in. Hello? Earth to Setsuna-san? The dark green-haired girl jumps when she hears someone speak to her while tapping her shoulder. Zipping her head to her left, she sees that it was the orange-haired girl that got her attention named Itsuka Kendo. Oh. Sorry, Kendo, Setsuna says before chuckling and scratching the back of her head. What's up? Itsuka and a few other students raise a brow at the blushing Setsuna. Finding it a little bit surprising for their classmate to act like she is now when she's much more playful, confident, and, in some of the students' opinions, a bit provocative when they first met her in Class 1B. However, Itsuka was able to catch Setsuna's eyes shifting towards another table. Looking over there, she just saw another group of students eating and chatting together. But upon further inspection, Itsuka was able to recognize one of the students, a boy with gray blonde hair, a black headband with a red 4-pointed star and cartoon bull's head stitched onto it, and a strong physique from what she could tell from the last time she saw him. Hey! It's that guy who destroyed the 0-pointer with his bare hands. Looking back at Setsuna, Itsuka's eyes broadened when she saw that she resumed her watching of the table occupied by the other group of students. And if she guessed correctly from that ever-growing smile and the extol gaze in her eyes, Itsuka can see that Setsuna continued to watch this Asta boy, who was continuing to have a great time with his new friends. It was now the afternoon. This was the exact moment most of the students of Class 1A have been waiting for. They were finally going to go through hero basic training. And while some students were getting more pumped up by the second, some were curious about who was going to teach them in that field. I am here, a familiar heroic voice roars as the doors of the classroom open, revealing the symbol of peace himself. Coming through the door like a normal person. Turning their heads towards the door, almost everybody got hyped when they saw All Might entering the room. Izuku and Asta knew that All Might was going to be teaching in UA, but they did not expect him to teach their class. But that made the duo of friends a lot more excited than before, as evidenced by the twinkling stars they have in their eyes. I don't believe it. It's All Might. Kaminari cheered with a grin and a fist pump. Wow. He really is a teacher. Aijiro adds with some excitement of his own. That's a costume from the Silver Age, isn't it? Tsuyu puzzles with a croak and a finger on her cheek. Its style is so different, it's giving me goosebumps, Mashireo comments. After getting to his desk, All Might faces his students with his usual mighty grin. As you all can already tell, I will be teaching you all in Hero Basics training. It is a subject where you train in different ways to learn the basics of being a hero. You'll take the most units of this subject. All Might pauses to make a heroic pose that any fan of his would gawk at. Now, let's get right into it. Today, we will be doing. Stopping again, the number 1 hero spins around twice before revealing a card that reads Battle to the students. Combat training. As soon as All Might announced this, Izuku and Asta hear a dark chuckle before turning towards a grinning Katsuki, the source of the chuckling. Combat training, eh? While Izuku tensed up at both the reveal and Katsuki's dangerous eagerness. Asta's expression became stern, being prepared for anything when it comes to battle, as he always had before. And to go with that are these. All Might continues before pointing at a wall behind him, later revealing slots with numbers on them slowly ejecting from said wall. Costumes made based on your quirk registrations and requests you sent in before school started. While everyone was happy to receive their costumes, with Izuku looking at his backpack with a determined smile, Asta smirks to himself as he pulled out one of his journals that he kept with him when he was younger. Opening one to a certain page, the gray-blonde boy's smile widens as he looks at the sketch for his hero costume with all of the details added on them with the request he has for it written on his registration paper. Oh boy. I can't wait to see how it looks after I get a look at it and try it on. After you all change, gather in ground beta. That is where you will be learning your first lessons. Yes, sir. A few moments later, the students arrive at the suburban area in their hero costumes they've chosen. Some looked flashy, and some looked a little basic. They say the outfits make the pros, ladies and gentlemen, All Might says as he scanned their costumes with an impressed stare. Be fully aware. From now on, you folks are heroes. As the students acknowledged All Might's words, Aijiro noticed someone from the corner of his eye and turns left, resulting in his eyes going as wide as saucers before grinning at his classmate. Whoa! Look at you, Asta. Everybody follows Aijiro's stare and share gasps and looks of shock of their own when Asta arrived from behind them with his hero costume. Asta's outfit consists of pure black combat armor that can be compared to a knight's because of the large shoulder guards and the knee guards of his boots. He also wears matching colored gauntlets made from the same material as his costume, with the fingers of the gloves being claws. For headwear, Asta had to ditch his headband for now. So instead, he has 2 black faux forward-pointing horns that look like a bull's and a thick black domino mask that came with 2 thin streaks going down his cheeks attached to the bottom eyepieces of the mask. In the middle of each streak, 2 more thinner horizontal lines can be seen stacked on each other with decent spacing. These parts are also a part of his domino mask. Damn, dude. Siro says before smiling behind his helmet's black visor and giving Asta a thumbs up. Now that's a costume. I'll say. Rikido agrees with Mashireo, nodding before speaking next. Although, the mask looks a little weird, in my opinion. Oh, man. Kurosaki looks scary. Minoru exclaims with a shiver before resorting to staring at Momo's cleavage that's revealed by her costume to calm himself down, only for Tsuyu to smack him on the head with her tongue while looking at Asta's costume in bemusement. Kyoka, whose costume looks like that of a rocker with some red stickers on her cheeks, took in every inch of Asta's armor from his torso to his boots and whistled at the neat design, while Mina and Toru blushed at the sight with foolish grins. Asta chuckles at all the praises his classmates were giving to Asta on his costume before scratching the back of his head. Thanks, you guys. Looks like it turned out better than expected. Asta then looks to see Tsuyu approaching him and offers her a smile of his own when he sees her costume. Yours looks awesome too, Suchan. He compliments as he observes her bright green turtleneck bodysuit, tan gloves, webbed flippers shaped like frog feet, and goggles that appear to be operational underwater. I assume that's so you can be a frog-like hero? Suyu nods with a ribbit. That's the idea. And if I'm looking at yours correctly, I take it you're going for a bull. Yup. Asta confirms. When we were younger, Izuku would always compare my actions to that of a bull charging into action, and, well, it kinda stuck to me. An interesting design, Asta, Tenya praises while walking towards Asta from behind him. Turning around to face him, Asta becomes surprised when he gets a look at Tenya's hero costume and gets more excited. Cool. You look like a knight, dude. Tenya gasps a bit at how Asta described his white armor and helmet. Well, since I'll be going very fast with my engine quirk, I need to make sure I have the necessary protection in case I were to accidentally crash. Although, now that I'm thinking about it, my helmet does kinda make me look like a knight. Asta chuckles with Tenya. Well, either way, that armor suits you. Tenya is again taken back by Asta's hyper, yet kind words about his outfit. Oh. Thank you for your kind words, Asta. Asta-kun. Asta, Tenya, and Suyu turn their heads to see Achiko approaching them with her hero costume consisting of a skin-tight black full bodysuit with a pale pink design down the middle of her torso, 2 black circles on her chest, and a helmet with a tinted visor protecting her whole face. Any idea where Deku is? I can't find him anywhere. Asta takes a quick look around the students, and as Achiko stated earlier, he was nowhere to be found. I guess it's taking him longer to get his costume on? Suyu shrugs with a croak. With how shy Midoriya-chan can be, he might be taking some time to generate more confidence. Asta was about to respond but was interrupted when he and his friends hear All Might laughing in glee with how the students have chosen the designs of their hero costumes. Look at you all, y'all look cool. All Might compliments before facing the rest of his students. Now, shall we begin, you zygotes? While most of the students replied with an excited response, Asta continued to search for Izuku, hoping that he won't be late for the combat training. But while he was, the corner of his eye has caught the sight of Shoto, who's wearing a plain off-white shirt with matching pants and boots, 2 gold straps over his shoulders, and fake eyes covering the whole left side of his head and body, keeping his eyes on him with an unreadable expression, something that put Asta off because of how often he does that. Why does Todoroki keep staring at me? The gray blonde wondered before looking down at his armor and examined himself to avoid meeting his gaze. We've never interacted with each other yet, and throughout the school day, he's been watching me like a hawk. What's up with that? Oh. Asta-kun? Hearing his name, Asta looks over his shoulder and sees a grinning Mina striding over to him with her hips swaying side to side by every step. Observing his pink-skinned friend, he saw that her costume consisted of a plain white mask, a purple and turquoise skin-tight bodysuit with a camouflage pattern ending just above her breasts, a cropped sleeveless tan waistcoat with white fur along its collar, which she left unbuttoned, complete with plum violet and beige boots. After taking one more step, Mina giggles before leaning forward towards Asta, intently showing him her cleavage before winking and making her boobs jiggle with an upwards motion of her upper arms. Like what you see. Placing a hand on his chin. Asta takes another moment to look at her outfit before looking back up at Mina, who was eagerly waiting for his answer. Well, the design does look good on you. Asta began with Mina giggling at the compliment. But I ain't quite sure what you're going for. As soon as he said that, Mineta and Kaminari face-faulted at the additional response, having watched what Mina was really trying to do with her costume towards Asta. Mina, on the other hand, was stunned that Asta didn't react with the least amount of shyness. Heck, he wasn't even blushing, especially after what she did with her breasts. Phooey. And here I was hoping he'd get all flustered. After pouting, the pink-skinned girl looks down towards herself as a blush worked its way onto her cheeks. Well, he did say it looks good on me. Mina-chan? Mina jumps with a squeak and darker cheeks when Asta spoke to her again. Oh. Why, you see, Asta-kun, since my quirk allows me to create and weaponize acid from my arms, I thought I'd get it to where I can have them exposed enough so I won't have to burn off any sleeves. And for producing acid from the soles of my feet, I got these acid-proof boots to have enough holes on the bottom so I can still use it to skate like yesterday. Asta takes a closer look at the sole of one of Mina's boots when she lifted it up to show him the holes and nodded. I see. They seem small enough to produce enough acid, but not too big so your bare feet would have to deal with the feeling of standing on them. Mina nods back before putting her foot back down. But whether I'll skate with ease or not is something I have yet to find out. Good thing we're allowed to do revisions and some adjustments if something isn't quite right. Yup. Sorry to keep you waiting. Hearing another familiar voice, Asta turns his head left and smiles brightly to see that Izuku has finally arrived with his hero costume. Izuku! Over here! The green-haired boy looked over to see Asta waving over to him and smiles back. Asta! Izuku shouts before sprinting over to him and scanning him from head to toe in awe. Your costume! It looks so much cooler than the updated sketches you've shown me. Thanks! Asta says before showing Izuku his wrists. I was supposed to have a grappling hook or two installed on the wrists, but I got a letter from the designers saying that they ran out of time and will add them later. I see, Izuku says before shyly poking two of his fingers together. Hey, anyway, if you don't mind me asking, what do you think of my costume? Asta took a moment to observe Izuku's outfit. He thought the red running boots and the green full-body jumpsuit with black elbow and knee pads, white gloves, and a red belt with utilities were pretty good on him, but when his eyes laid upon his mask, which has long green ears and a respirator with a makeshift toothy smile, it left the gray blonde with one thing to describe it: if All Might was a cartoon rabbit. Izuku flinches at the response before chuckling with an embarrassed blush hidden behind his mask. Ha. It's a little obvious, isn't it, Asta? Just a little, yes. But hey, there are always revisions for the future. While Izuku nodded in agreement, All Might, having heard their conversation about Izuku's costume, covered his mouth in an attempt to not shout out his next thought. A little. It's too obvious. Well, I think it looks cool on you, Deku. It's really down to earth. Turning towards the source of the commendation, Izuku jumps with a darker blush when he sees a certain girl walking over to her. Uraraka-san. Understanding his reaction, Achiko rubs a hand behind her head with a blush of her own. Yeah. I should have been more clear when writing what I wanted. My suit ended up being a little too tight for my skin. Having a look at her outfit himself, Minoru has light red circles on his cheeks when he observes the curves it showed off before giving it a thumbs up. The hero course is the best. Izuku and Asta look at Minoru when they heard him speak and held an expression that said, "Where did he come from?" After everyone got settled, All Might addressed to his students again. Now then, let us begin the combat training. Sensei. Izuku looked to his left to see that it was Tenya with his hand raised that spoke up. When he observed his costume, he thought that it looked awesome on him. But personally, he thinks Asta's armor is cooler than Tenya's. This is a battle center from the entrance exam, Tenya says. So will we be conducting urban battles again? No, All Might answers before holding up two fingers. We're going to move ahead 2 steps. You see? Most of the time, fighting villains takes place outside, but if you look at the total numbers, atrocious villains appear indoors at a higher rate. Imprisonment, house arrest, backroom deals. In this society filled with heroes, the most truly intelligent villains hide in the shadows. So for this class, you'll be split into villains and heroes and fight 2-on-2 indoor battles. After processing the information, Tsuyu croaks with a tilted head. Are we doing this without basic training? This is a real battle to understand those basics. All Might replies. However, the key this time is that there are no robots to take care of. How will wins and losses be determined? Momo asks with curiosity. Can we go all out and beat the shit out of them anyway? Bakugo questions while shifting his eyes towards Izuku and Asta every second without the two noticing. Will the punishment be anything cruel like with Aizawa-sensei? Achiko quizzes with worry. How shall we be split up? Tenya asks with his hand raised. Isn't this cape dashing? Yuga asks with a wink as he showed it off. one at a time. All Might snaps a bit with some sweat drops on his face. Calming down, the number one hero produces something from his pocket and opens it in front of himself like a book. And from how he was scanning it with his eyes, it got Izuku and Asta to raise a brow at him. Is that a script? Now listen here. All Might began while flipping the pages until he found the right spot. The situation is that the villains have hidden a nuclear weapon somewhere in their hideout. The heroes are to try and dispose of that bomb or catch the villains in the allotted time, while the villains need to protect the nuclear weapon for the whole time or catch heroes. Gosh, the situation feels very American. Izuku notes with Asta nodding in agreement. All Might then produces a box of lots and presents it to the students. Teams and opponents will be determined by drawing lots. They're being decided so haphazardly? Tenya asks in bewilderment. Well, pros often have to create makeshift teams with heroes from other agencies. Izuku explains to him. So maybe the lots are a way to represent that. I see. The discernment to look ahead. Tenya mutters in realization and understanding before bowing his head to All Might. Please excuse my rudeness. It's quite alright, young Ida, All Might assures him before raising a fist in the air. Now, let's get those lots drawn. The students of Class 1A draw their lots one by one, with most of them being curious who they'll be partnered with. Once everyone acquired theirs, the following teams were set up. Achiko and Izuku were assigned on Team A, much to the latter's surprise. Team B consists of Mizo and Shoto. Team C is Mineta and Momo, much to the shorter boy's delight that made the tall girl cautious of him. Team D is Katsuki and Tenya, who felt uncomfortable with the outcome, especially with Katsuki giving him what he feels to be an evil eye. Team E is Mina and Yuga, but the Pinkette didn't seem happy about it since she was hoping she'd be paired up with Asta, but she kept that thought to herself. Team F is Mashireo and Rikido, who nod at each other in acknowledgement of their alliance for this class. Team G is Kaminari and Kyoka. Team H is Fumikage and Tsuyu. Team I is Asta and Toru, but as of this lot draw, Asta is still looking for her while Toru was acting giddy to herself for who she's partnered with. And lastly, Team J is Shiro and Kirishima, although Kirishima too preferred to be Asta's ally to be a strong manly duo. With all the teams set up, Asta continued to search for Toru since she was her ally for Team I hours ago. She was easier to detect thanks to her school uniform since her quirk makes her entire body invisible except for the clothes she wears, but right now, he can't seem to find her anywhere. Hagakure-san, Hagakure-san, Hagakure-san. Where the heck is she? Right after he asked himself this, Asta felt something soft press up against his back and hears a cute giggle from behind him. Right over here, Asta screams with wide eyes when he heard a girl's voice whisper in his ear and zips around to see who it was. And much to his surprise, he discovered a pair of light blue gloves floating in the air and light brownish gray shoes standing and moving on their own. Putting it all together, Asta now realizes that he found his partner, seeing that the gloves were waving at him and the shoes were bouncing like how a person would. Wait. Is that you, Hagakure-san? Yup, Toru confirms before giving Asta two peace signs with her gloved hands. I know, pretty hard to detect, eh? It looks like my approach for being a stealthy heroine is paying off. Asta nods slowly, recalling how her invisibility quirk works, which brought him to ask a question that he's had on his mind about it for a while now. Are you not able to go visible and invisible willingly? Toru giggles sheepishly while scratching the area of her height where her head's supposed to be. Understanding why he asked. Sadly not. But even if I was able to, it's best that I don't, since the only way for me to be fully invisible is, you know. Asta gasps with his cheeks turning pink and quickly shakes his head while forming an X with his arms. Yeah. I already filled in the blanks. You can stop now. After slapping his palms against his cheeks, Asta regains his composure and nods firmly. Anyway, I hope we can work together and do our best, Hagakure-san. Toru giggles sweetly at Asta while putting her hands behind her back. Of course, Asta-kun, she says kindly before taking 2 steps closer to him. But please, you can call me Toru from now, okay? Despite being invisible. Toru did lean her head towards Asta and gave him a wink. Asta just simply nods at her with a small smile. Alright. If that's what you'd like, Toru-san. After everyone else got with their teammates, All Might was seen with 2 boxes marked as hero and villain. One hand was in each box as he was picking out the teams. Alright, see who the first teams to fight will be. After a few more seconds of digging without looking in the boxes, the hero pulls out the 2 orbs that revealed the 2 teams and what role they will play. Okay. Team A will be the heroes, and Team D will be the villains. Izuku froze at those 2 letters. He was on Team A, and the people he'll be facing in Team D are Tenya Ida and Katsuki Bakugo. Looking over at his friend, Asta could see how fearful he was to have to face his longer-time childhood friend turned bully. Izuku's face might reveal to be a mild surprise, but deep down, he was shell-shocked. Everyone else head towards the monitor room. Yes, sir. While everyone was following All Might to their destination, Izuku kept his stare towards the ground, still thinking about his inevitable battle with Katsuki. Shifting his eyes left, his irises shrink a bit to see the ash-blonde boy in question keeping his glare right on him. And quickly looks away before sighing deeply. Originally, he would have been more of a stumbling mess when met with the fiery gaze of Katsuki, but with all of the positive memories in mind, especially with what both All Might and Asta taught him, Izuku balls his right hand into a fist and looks forward with a more stern and ready face. Katsuki saw this expression and growled at the mere sight of a braver Izuku. For as long as he can remember, he was always a nervous wreck, especially without Asta around to be his bodyguard, as he would like to describe it. The explosion wielder had 2 guesses on why Izuku was acting a bit different for this training exercise. The obvious one is Asta still encouraging him to chase his dream. And the other one, which made Katsuki even angrier, was the sudden revelation that he had a quirk the whole time. And he was under the impression that Izuku hid it from him, with Asta possibly doing it for him too. After escorting the students to the monitor room, All Might caught up to teams A and D to give them further instructions on their duel. Villain team, go in first and set up. In 5 minutes, the hero team will break in, and the battle will begin. Yes, sir. Tenya shouts before entering the building where the fake bomb is, with Katsuki following while rolling his eyes at the armored student. Young Ida, young Bakugo, learn to think from the perspective of the villains. This is pretty close to a real battle. Go all out, and don't be afraid to get hurt. However, if things go too far, I will stop it. Tenya nods in affirmative. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Before entering the building with Tenya, Katsuki takes another glance at Izuku, who was getting ready with Achiko, and releases another quiet snarl at him before stomping his way inside. After getting themselves settled where the faux explosive is located, Tenya sighs before taking off his helmet. Even if this is training, it pains me to become a villain, he says as he walks towards the weapon. So we simply have to guard this bomb? He asks before knocking on it twice. It's papier-mâché, but with metal. Very interesting. Oi! Tenya turns around towards Katsuki when he hears him speak to him. Upon setting his eyes on him, the explosion slinger had his back turned on him. Deku has a quirk, right? Tenya cocks a brow at the boy with grenade gauntlets in confusion. You saw that extraordinary strength Midoriya displayed, didn't you? Although, it appears to carry a lot of risks. Katsuki's body twitched without Tenya noticing. However, you seem to be especially angry when it comes to Midoriya. Tenya was still speaking to him, but when Katsuki heard Izuku's surname, it was as if the whole world was muted as his mind kept playing Izuku's display of a quirk in loop. How dare he trick me? Katsuki thought as his expression turned more dangerous. That fucking nerd. Back outside, Izuku and Achiko observe the map of the building given to them with calculative expressions. It's a lot of work to memorize the building's floor plan, Achiko says to her ally before looking up at the building itself. But All Might is just the same as when he's on TV. And unlike Aizawa-sensei, it looks like there's no punishment, so we can relax and you're not relaxed at all. Achiko looks at Izuku in bemusement as she witnesses him keeping his eyes locked onto his map, looking more like a nervous wreck than ever. WL. It's because we're up against Kaken. Anita's there, too, so I feel like I need to constantly be on guard. I see, Achiko says in slight understanding. But Kugokuin's the one who's mean to you, right? Izuku takes a small breath before elaborating. He's a strong one, a piece of work, might I add, but his goal, his confidence, his physical strength, and his quirk are way more amazing than mine. Izuku pauses to sit up from the railing and look up at the building where the enemy team is before putting his respirator back in place. But that's why right now, I need to surpass my limits and win this battle. Achiko looked stunned at Izuku's determination before smirking back at her partner. This must be a fated battle between two men, huh? Izuku jumps at the idea and puts his hands up in defense with some light red in his cheeks. Sorry. This isn't your problem, Uraraka-san. Of course it is, silly. We're a team, aren't we? Achiko laughs wholeheartedly before pumping a fist into the air. So let's do our best. Izuku blinks at Achiko in slight surprise before smiling back in agreement, looking more ready than ever to battle. Alright. Let's start the indoor person-to-person combat training with Team A and Team D. Hearing All Might's voice from the intercom, Izuku and Achiko nod at each other before facing forward towards the entrance. Asta. All Might. Izuku thought before slitting his eyes at the door. I won't let you down. Meanwhile, All Might can be seen with the rest of the students in the monitor room. Okay, everyone, you all should think as well, the symbol of peace advises. Take this moment to observe all 4 of the classmates through these cameras and see how they do battle. Once they are finished, reflect on their actions so you can figure out what you will all do for when it's your turn. After speaking what he has to say, All Might narrows his eyes towards the screens while adjusting the earpiece he'll be using to communicate with the operating teams in his left ear. Young Midoriya. Here, you are no more than a single student. I'll grade you strictly and will not be playing favorites. As the students watch teams A and D in action, the most observant of 1A were Asta and Momo. And while Momo's reasons were as simple as what All Might instructed, for the most part, Asta couldn't help but be worried for his best friend in green. If what he heard Katsuki say about Izuku's quirk yesterday is correct, then there wasn't a single doubt in his mind that that explosive boy will bring him into a bigger world of pain than he ever has. Keeping calm, Asta kept scanning his eyes on the screens displaying the locations of the building, looking for Izuku and the other competing students. Good luck out there, Izuku. Back to the battle, Izuku enters the building through a window with Achiko quietly following close. We've infiltrated successfully. Achiko whispers. There are a lot of blind spots. Izuku warns her while looking through every passage carefully. So let's be as careful and as quiet as we can. Achiko nods without a word before following her ally through a path to Izuku's right. Coming across a left turn, Izuku gets his back onto the wall and carefully leans his head over the opening. Seeing that the coast is clear, he motions Achiko to keep moving as he remained cautious with every step. I still can't properly control One for All, Izuku says in his thoughts while remaining observant. So unless it's an emergency, I can't use it against anyone. If I do, then there's a good chance that it'll kill them. So we have to do it with the physical strength I have now and Uraraka-san's zero gravity. I've got to use my head. Izuku and Achiko come across the end of the hall where 2 pathways are available. Choosing to go right, Izuku gets his back against the wall before reaching the very end with Achiko copying him. Leaning his head over, he kept the notes on indoor battles and fights in tight spaces firmly in mind. Seeing that no one is around, Izuku motions Achiko to keep moving while he still shifted his eyes around his surroundings. But as he took his first 3 steps, the right corner of his eyes catches sudden movement from the right corner of the hallway that was next to the one he and Achiko came from. And seeing that person jumping high in the air, Izuku's eyes widen when he detects Katsuki popping out from that corner before aiming a palm right for him. And with a battle cry, he lunges right at Izuku with rage in his bloodshot eyes as he attempted to slam his head against the wall behind him with some explosions popping from his hand. Before he could reach him, Izuku jumps out of the way before catching Achiko in his arms during the dodge. And as soon as Katsuki's palm touched the wall, a big explosion followed, managing to destroy half of Izuku's mask as it got caught in the attack. But thankfully, he and Achiko were okay. Uraraka-san, you okay? Izuku asks before zipping his head towards the smoke, knowing that any moment Katsuki will try again to destroy him. "Yeah, thanks," Achiko replies, still taken back with how powerful their opponent's attack is. Upon looking at her ally, she gasps to see some bruises on Izuku's exposed left cheek. "Don't worry, it's just a scratch," Izuku assures her before watching the smoke be dragged away by Katsuki, whose eyes were locked right onto his target. "Come on, Deku," Katsuki says with a challenging voice. "Don't dodge." "I had a feeling you'd come for me first," Izuku grunts with a glare right back on Katsuki. "A surprise attack from the start?" Ijiro exclaims in the monitor room before pounding his fist into his palm in anger. "That damn Bakugo. A move like that is so unmanly." "A surprise attack is a strategy," young Kirishima, All Might says to the redhead. "This is supposed to simulate a real battle. So it's expected for a villain, and even a hero, to perform such attacks. Midori was able to avoid it, though." Mina adds with excitement. "This is getting awesome. Hang on." Kaminari butts in as he watches the ash-blonde boy charge forward towards Izuku. Bakugo's still at it. "I won't do so much damage that this fight gets stopped, but I'm gonna get close." Asta's eye twitches with a teeth-showing frown as he was able to tell what Katsuki said by reading his lips despite the lack of audio on the monitor. Keeping his eyes on the battle, Asta watches Katsuki attempt another strike onto Izuku. However, there was one detail that he noticed about his attack that he observed for a long time now. And it was thanks to that detail that Izuku was able to easily counter it by grabbing hold of his right arm, the arm that Katsuki was using for the attack. While Katsuki was shocked by the move, Achiko smiles at Izuku and how quick he was to catch their opponent's arm. "Wow! He's like a martial arts master," Achiko says. Sliding his left foot to his left, Izuku used all of the strength he developed to pull Katsuki over his shoulder and trip him up. "What the hell?" Katsuki exclaims mentally while prepping some explosions in his left hand. "Did he read my movements?" Hearing the light sound of explosives from behind, Izuku unleashes a roar before slamming Katsuki onto the ground on his back, knocking some wind out of the explosion slinger. And while most of the students were surprised with the counter move, Asta simply grins at his best friend, as that was one of the many counter moves he helped Izuku improve on during their training for the UA entrance exams. "Nice one, Izuku." Back at the battle, Izuku breaths heavily as he takes a fighting stance in front of the downed Katsuki, who is slowly getting up while snarling like crazy. "Kakun," Izuku began. "You usually start with a big right swing. How much do you think I've been watching you?" Katsuki turns his head around to glare at Izuku. "I wrote an analysis for all the heroes I thought were amazing in my notebook." "The same notebook you tried to destroy." Katsuki got angrier as he recalled how Asta prevented him from ruining the notebook Izuku had for analyzing heroes. And despite how harsh his expression has become, it didn't stop Izuku from looking at him dead in the eyes with his fighting posture stronger than before. "My Deku does not mean useless anymore, Kaken. From now on, my Deku means you can do it. And my Deku means determined Izuku." Achiko gasps at Izuku's speech, taking her back to yesterday where she learned the origins of why Katsuki called him Deku. And with how she described what the word sounded like to her, as well as how Asta found a better positive meaning for Deku, she couldn't help but smile brightly for her friend, glad to know that he's taking those new positive definitions to heart. Back on his feet, Katsuki faces Izuku again with his face twisted into more fury than ever before. Observing Izuku's stance got him remembering the last time he made such a stance. It was 11 years ago. And even now, Katsuki can tell that there is still some fear in Izuku's eyes. It wasn't as much as all those years, but it's still present nonetheless. "Even though you're scared, you still want to fight," Katsuki states before flaring some explosions. "That's what I hate about you the most." Despite his dread for Katsuki's wrath slowly rising a bit, Izuku still refused to back down. As he and Katsuki have a stare down, childhood memories came flooding back to Izuku. From the moment they got to know each other, and despite the trouble he would get into, he always thought that Katsuki was a cool person. But when his quirk manifested, Katsuki became more of a jerk as time passed, especially when he learned that Izuku couldn't manifest a quirk. His attitude got so bad, Izuku was afraid that he would go down the wrong path. And over those years, Izuku had always been afraid to stand up to Katsuki. But not today. This time, Izuku intends to fight him. And he intends to win. Oi, Bakugo. What's your status? Katsuki flinches with gritted teeth when he hears Tenya on his communicator earpiece. What happened over there? Katsuki places a finger on the communicator with a darker skull. Just shut up and keep guarding that damn bomb. I am not in the fucking mood right now. I'm not asking about how you feel. I just want to know. Katsuki shuts the communicator off before setting his sights back onto Izuku, who was waiting for him to make his next move. Tenya, from the fake bomb's location, was able to figure out that he hung up just since he was unable to get him when he tried to call for him 3 times. Going off on his own like that. Tenya mutters before appearing more irritated. Just what is wrong with him? Geez. I wish I knew what Bakugo was saying, Kirishima says in the monitor room. It's really hard to tell with just the cameras in a fixed position with no sound. He's talking to his partner over the small wireless radio in his ear, All Might explains. You can bring that plus the building's floor plan, as well as this capture tape. The hero presents the roll of thin but small white tape to the students. Once you wrap this around your opponents, it will be acknowledged as a capture. All Might Sensei? Toru speaks up with her hand raised. The time limit is 15 minutes, and the heroes don't know where the nuclear weapon is located, right? You are absolutely correct, young Hagakure. This draws a confused expression from Mina. Then that means the heroes are at a disadvantage. Heroes should be able to turn the tables on whatever predicament they're in. All Might says. And besides, didn't Aizawa-sensei tell you all? You know. Some of the students were able to understand what he was getting at as they watched the number 1 hero get his fist ready. Say it with me now. Plus Ultra. After they said their motto, Yuga noticed some movement on one of the screens and notifies All Might. Monsieur Bakugo is on the move again. Hearing that, All Might and the students resumed their observations, with Asta, Momo, and Fumikage being the most attentive. Prepared to break him, Katsuki aims his left palm behind himself while keeping his bloodshot stare on Izuku. Having an idea of what he's up to, Izuku prepares himself further and takes a quick glance at Achiko. Uraraka, go on without me. Eh? Achiko looks at Izuku with bewilderment. But with the goal of finding the bomb and with how obsessed Katsuki was with taking Izuku down, she was able to figure out why he made the request and took off to search for the fake weapon on her own. As she was doing so, Katsuki propels himself towards Izuku with his explosions and aims a kick for his skull. But thanks to his spinning charge-up, Izuku knew which leg he was using and was able to block the kick at the right time. Looking away from me? Katsuki questions with booming venom. You must be so sure of yourself. Just as he said that, Katsuki felt something tug at his ankle. Looking towards it, his irises contract when he sees Izuku wrapping it with capture tape. Taking a page from what he studied from Aizawa, aka Eraserhead, Izuku uses the tape to keep a firm grip on Katsuki's ankle. He then looks over himself to see what his opponent will do next. If it's Kaken, he'll be impatient and swing with his right again. As he predicted, Katsuki charges his right fist and aims it for Izuku's teeth, allowing the boy in green to dodge another explosive palm strike with his capture tape still intact while turning his head towards the explosion slinger. That's what I thought. Back at the monitor room. Most of the students of 1A were impressed with what Izuku pulled off. That guy's amazing. Rikido says. He's not even using his quirk yet. Siro adds with astonishment hidden by his visor. And there he is taking on the guy who finished second in the entrance exam. All Might watched the battle with keen eyes. He knew that his apprentice was always good at reacting quickly in a crisis. If all of those notes the boy wrote in his notebook were anything, they were very useful guides to how he can internalize what he's written and adopt them for his own style of fighting. Looks like that fanboy knowledge is paying off as it propels him forward. Asta was the most aware of Izuku's notes playing a role in his battle. He's hung out with him a lot of times to know that he observed every single motion of the hero's actions and their strategies. And from what he's seeing, he too knows that those notebooks he used were very handy for studying combat. And he couldn't be any happier for his friend. Asta then witnesses Katsuki appearing to be more cautious this time around. It was pretty evident when he saw his face say, "No more Mr. Nice Guy." Not that he was that much of a nice guy, anyway. But instead of waiting for the next attack, Izuku decided to turn a corner and retreat, agitating Katsuki further as he shouted for him before giving chase. "What are you up to now, Izuku?" Asta wonders with slightly wider eyes. "Bakugo might use his explosives to get to you faster if you plan on hiding." Despite what he thought, Izuku did manage to lose Katsuki, as the latter of whom can be seen on a screen standing in a hallway that revealed 6 open paths, one of which being where Izuku ran off to. Quaking in vexation, Katsuki resumed running and looked for Izuku. Much to Asta's surprise, he didn't use his explosions to speed up yet. But perhaps this could be so he can have another element of surprise. Asta watches Katsuki check the closest corner on the right and run over there. He was unable to find Izuku there and went back to check the other paths. Knowing Katsuki personally, Asta can tell that Katsuki was getting more infuriated with every turn he took. Still showing no sign of his green-haired opponent. Finding himself back where he started, Katsuki began to explode. "Oi! You tricked me, didn't you, you wimpy bastard?" Asta was able to make out from reading Katsuki's lips. "Was it fun tricking me all this time? Is your little dwarf of a friend aware of it too and playing along with the gag? Ha! You've got a flashy quirk, don't you? Just try and get me with it, 'cause no matter what you try, I'm still better than you." While some of the students commented on how furious he was acting, with some saying he can play a convincing antagonist, Asta processed what he read from Katsuki's lips and crossed his arms with a stern expression. "Is that what this is all about, Bakugo?" Some students like Ijiro, Tsuyu, Mina, Momo, Toru, and Shoto heard what Asta whispered and looked over to him. You got an idea what's up in there, Asta?" Asta looks over to Ijiro when he was asked that by him. The gray blonde shifts his eyes downward in thought for a moment before speaking up. "It's not my place to get into people's personal business, but let's just say that Izuku and Bakugo have a rough history with each other from childhood." While some of the students rose a brow in intrigue, especially with how hostile Katsuki was acting towards Izuku, All Might fully understood what Asta meant, having heard of how Katsuki thinks well of himself from Izuku. And as the hero observed Katsuki searching for the boy in green, from blowing off doors to even firing explosions from corners in hopes to catch him, only to fail as he wasn't there, he believed that Katsuki's rage for All Might's apprentice was too much. But the symbol of peace was curious. Just what the heck happened between Izuku and Katsuki? Meanwhile, Tenya was still standing with the explosive device while tapping his foot on the ground, still thinking about his allies' brash decisions he made through the battle so far. Bakugo is a natural at playing the villain, he notes to himself. But that fits this training perfectly. He then looks down at his hand and balls it into a fist. Then I must also devote myself to the role of the antagonist. After all, this is another trial for a man who will not bring shame to the Ida family. Become a villain. Be dyed with evil in order to become a hero. Tenya takes a moment to take a deep breath as if to get into a role for a television program. "I am." Tenya began slowly before turning away from the bomb and developing a crazy look in his eyes. "An extremely evil robot from a doctor's laboratory." Wahahahahahahahaha. After pulling off his best evil laugh, he suddenly hears someone from behind a pillar trying their best to suppress their laugh, followed by a female voice whispering, "He's taking this so seriously. Have you arrived? Yuraroka?" Achiko gasps when she realizes that she was found out. With no other choice, she slowly steps out of her hiding place and shows herself to her foe. "I knew that you would come here alone the instant Bakugo ran off by himself." Tenya states in character. "Your quirk allows you to make objects you touch float. So as a precaution, I put away all the things on this floor before you arrived. Now I won't fall victim to your little tricks." While she still found his villain laugh that followed what he said to be funny, Achiko was a bit intimidated by his impressive acting skills as an enemy. He's starting to look like a villain. Back with Izuku, he was currently hiding behind a wall while peeking through a corner. Every now and then, he would watch his back for any sign of Katsuki. And so far, he was in the clear, for now. Deku-kun, come in. Izuku hears Ochako in his communicator and engages in conversation. Uraraka-san. What's your status? Izuku asks quietly. I found the weapon, but at the cost of Ida-kun detecting me. Sorry. It's alright, Izuku assures her. Where exactly is the weapon? In the middle of the 5th floor. Izuku's eyes broaden when he remembers the building's map and where he's at now. Almost directly above. He then checks the time and sees that they have 6 minutes remaining. I don't know if we'll have enough time to secure it, though. Once that clock strikes 0, we lose. Knowing what's at stake, Izuku stands up and gets his capture tape ready to use as a weapon. I can't lose this fight, he declares mentally. I won't. But then, from the corner of his left eye, Izuku gasps when he sees a familiar explosion slinger standing before him from his far left, forcing Izuku to zip around and lock his eyes onto him. With a calm expression, Katsuki slowly raises his right hand with the muzzle end of his grenade gauntlet aiming upwards. They're loaded. Izuku remains silent at those words, wondering what Katsuki meant when he said that. Why won't you use your quirk? Katsuki questions while smirking with his eyes turning more crazed. Are you implying that you can win even if you don't use it? Are you underestimating me that much? Deku? Izuku was once again quiet, readying his capture tape as he knew that he won't be able to run away to aid Ochako. If he does that, then it will lead to a 4-way battle, a scenario he didn't want to be put in right now. I have no choice but to fight Kaken head-on. He thought with a strong expression. If Asta can handle him without fear, especially like he did 11 years ago, then so will I. With some more confidence in himself, Izuku steps forward. I'm not scared of you anymore, he states boldly, making Katsuki grind his teeth at such behavior. But that growling frown turns into a grin as Katsuki readies his right hand. With your stalking, you probably already know that my explosion quirk lets me secrete nitroglycerin like sweat from the sweat glands on the palms of my hands and make it explode. He states before aiming his gauntlet at Izuku and pulling the slide of the silver part like a pistol, revealing a pin, like one would expect an actual grenade to have. So if they made them the way I asked, then these gauntlets will store the nitroglycerin inside them, and... Katsuki pauses to get his thumb through the ring part of the pin, and when All Might saw this through the monitor, he had a bad feeling about where this will be going since he can hear the contestants through his earpiece. Asta was worried too since he knows that the more nitroglycerin he produces, the more powerful his explosions will be. Young Bakugo, stop. Although Katsuki heard him clearly, he was still going to use his gauntlets. What if that blast kills him? Bakugo smiles wildly as he gets ready to pull the pin. He'll be fine as long as he dodges. Damn it, Bakugo, no. If you go through with this, then I will deduct points from your dash, but it was too late. Katsuki already pulled the pin off his gauntlet with the craziest expression All Might, Asta, and Izuku have ever seen on him so far. Seeing the light coming from the muzzle, Izuku watches to see a large muzzle flare protrude from the hole, followed by a projectile-like explosion in the size of a giant cannonball rushing right towards him. He was about to dodge, but the attack was so quick that he ended up being engulfed inside the attack. Everyone gasps in horror and shock when they saw the camera displaying the two boys get blocked by the attack while the environment around them began to shake because of the intensity of the explosion. Young Midoriya. All Might tries to call for him to see if he's okay. But so far, he didn't hear anything. And from another camera, the students and All Might saw that the explosion created a large hole in the wall of the 4th floor. Izuku! Asta exclaims as he is fixated on that hole created by Katsuki's gauntlet firearm. Everybody turned towards him because of how loud he shouted and widened their eyes as they saw that his expressions were a hybrid of anger, dread, and worry. Tsuyu, Mina, and Ijiro fully understood why Asta was feeling this way, as they knew how friendly they were with each other during yesterday and hours ago of today. And from what they could see on his face, Asta must know a great deal about Katsuki in the past like he does Izuku. Damn you, Bakugo. Asta curses mentally. Is your ego so twisted that you're willing to put someone you see being below you in a near-death state? Young Kurosaki. All Might can see how scared Asta is for Izuku and how pissed he is at Katsuki. Asta and Izuku have been best friends for a very long time. While he got an idea of how Katsuki is from his talks with his successor, so he found it perfectly natural for Asta to feel such emotions. But when the smoke from the explosion clears up, everyone is able to see Izuku and Katsuki from the large hole on the 4th floor. And while Izuku was still laying on the floor with his mask completely obliterated and the right sleeve of his shirt was torn off, he managed to escape the attack just narrowly, as he was then seen to slowly sit up. Seeing that made Asta gasp at the sight before sighing a breath of relief. Thank goodness. What the hell? Izuku began as he looks at the sadistic Katsuki with a slightly enraged expression of his own. Is that even allowed? Izuku can hear Katsuki chuckle to himself as he was striding forward. Crazy. The more that's stored in these gauntlets, the stronger the blast. Emerging from the smoke, the wide-eyed Katsuki stares down at Izuku while flexing his fingers with one of the gauntlets flashing red. What are you waiting for, Deku? Use your quirk already. Even if you're at full strength, you'll never beat me. Oh no, he's lost it. Izuku thought with a shiver down his spine. Tenya to Bakugo, come in. Back with Achiko and Tenya, the former of whom was still in battle with Tenya. But since they felt the quake that was caused by Katsuki's attack, it made Tenya attempt to contact his ally again. Did you do that? Tenya asks through the communicator. What in the world did you do? Paying closer attention, Achiko could see that Tenya was still trying to talk to Katsuki, so much so that it appears that he must have forgotten about her presence. This is my chance, Achiko states mentally before breaking into a sprint for the phobomb. I just need to touch it, and victory will be ours. With determination in her eyes, Achiko runs closer and closer to the bomb. But because of how loud her footsteps were, this alerted Tenya to her intentions and got him springing into action. I won't let you, hero scum. Tenya roars out while charging towards her with the intent of capturing her. But as he got close, Achiko activates her quirk and touches her hand with it. Taking one more step, Achiko leaps highly into the air, and thanks to the gravity quirk she applied to herself, she was able to go further in the air without having to land or get one of her legs caught by Tenya. Come on. Almost there. Achiko thought as she continued to float further towards the weapon. So, you can make yourself float too, huh? Tenya asks with his villain act still up while getting the engines in his calves active. Smirking as she got close enough, Achiko releases the gravity effects on herself and starts to fall towards the bomb. This special move is hard on my body, but it'll be all worth it once I touch that bomb. Achiko reached her hand forward to come in contact with the fake weapon. But just as a finger was about to touch it, a laughing Tenya speeds by with his quirk and swipes the weapon from her, causing her to tumble across the room and crash into a wall, causing her helmet to fall off. A sly trick, hero. But as long as there are no items you can weaponize, your quirk means nothing to me. Wahahahahaha. Achiko grits her teeth while wiping her forehead that gained a few bruises. Dekukuin's trying so hard, though, she thought as she turned around to face Tenya, wondering what she was going to do next. What's the matter, Deku? Katsuki questions him as he watches him still sitting on the ground. I didn't hit you, so you can still move, can't you? So come at me. Izuku keeps his stare glued onto Katsuki while clenching his right hand into a fist. The explosion shot out. He had his costume made so that his quirk would work even at a long range. Seeming to be out of options, Izuku quickly places a hand on his communicator. Uraraka-san, what's the situation? Katsuki's eyes twitch. Ignoring me again, little shit? Sensei, you should stop them. Ijiro pleads with all might. That Bakugo guy's gone crazy. At this rate, he might kill Midoriya. All Might was silent for a moment before giving his answer. No. While Ijiro was shocked by the reply, the hero started to think to himself. Although his action earlier will hurt his grade. Strangely enough, part of him is still sane. But just to be safe. With a serious gaze despite his smile, All Might brings the microphone back to his lips. Young Bakugo, the next time you use that, I'll stop the fight, and your team will fail. Ha! To unleash an attack on such a large scale inside is inviting destruction of the stronghold you should be protecting. That plan is foolish for both heroes and villains. You will lose a lot of points for it. After telling him the consequences, All Might can see that Katsuki was ticked with this. As a teacher, I should stop this. But while Katsuki was roaring in anger at what All Might had to say, Izuku was just finishing his explanation of his plan to Achiko. Go to the pillar by the windows, Izuku whispers as he got back on his feet. Over and out. Alright, fine, Katsuki exclaims, making Izuku snap his head back to him and see that he was now using his explosives to propel himself towards him. Then we'll finish this with our fists. Izuku takes one step back in preparation for his plan as he watches Katsuki jump towards him. No good. This is an angle I can't dodge. With squinted eyes, Izuku balls his right hand into a fist. I'll have to watch the timing. And counterattack. Seeing his moment, Izuku attempts to punch Katsuki, but as he made his attack, Katsuki used the explosion in his left hand to block it and fly over Izuku until he was behind him. Izuku hissed as he felt pain shoot from his hand to his forearm before feeling another explosive attack shoot him in the back, causing him more pain as more of his shirt is destroyed by the blast. Seeing the move from the monitor room got some of the students amused at the sight. Whoa! What the hell was that just now? Aijiro wondered aloud. Oomph. Looks like he did do some training to pull off a stunt like that, Asta says with a firm gaze. He doesn't look like the type to think. Asta and Aijiro turned their heads and saw that it was Shoto who spoke up while keeping his eyes on Katsuki, but not without taking a few glances at Asta every now and then. But he's more subtle than I expected, Shoto continued. He changed his course in a blast that doubled as a smokescreen and then blasted him again immediately. Momo nods with Shoto. Getting in a clean hit while fighting against inertia requires fine lateral adjustments to the power of the explosions. Kaminari sighs after taking Momo's inspiration in. Man, he's too talented. Mina pouts at Kaminari without him realizing it. Maybe so, but he's not as talented as Asta-kun, she starts before looking over the black-armored boy with a pervy grin. And besides, his muscles are thicker and stronger than that bully's. And I'll bet he'll wipe the floor with him any day. Kyoka gives Mina a weirded out expression since she was able to catch her looking at Asta dirtily with her cheeks looking more red than pink. Back at the battle, Izuku stumbled forwards while he still felt the pain from Katsuki's attack. Look, here I come, Katsuki announces while Izuku attempts to turn around to face him. It's that right swing you've been so observant on. Before he could even react, Katsuki slams his right arm's gauntlet hard against Izuku's right side, making him shout out in pain before his opponent grabs hold of his right arm. With his left hand ready, Katsuki then uses the explosions from his left palm to spin himself around. Daku! Katsuki exclaims as he lifts Izuku in the air. You're beneath me. Izuku was slammed harshly onto the ground, making the boy in green bounce on his back once before feeling the same pain Katsuki did when he did something similar to him minutes ago. He's not gonna give me a chance to think, Izuku thinks as he can feel his vision get a bit fuzzy. He's too strong. Sorry, Asta, but I'm left with no other choice. Okay, this is lynching, Mina exclaims to All Might. He can capture him for this exercise by just wrapping the tape around him. Why is he going as far as to brutalize him? Fumikage grunts at the scene displayed on the monitor. Those actions are that of a villain's. And Midoriya was doing well, too, Kaminari adds while scratching the side of his head. But in terms of combat power, Bakugo is definitely a ball of natural instincts. All Might can feel more and more pressure on himself from how more brutal this battle is getting. I should stop them. But All Might began as he watches Izuku slowly get up. I don't want to stop them. For his sake. A few seconds later, the students look to see that Izuku was starting to crawl away. He's running away? Toru quizzes. But that's not something a man should do, Kirishima says with a raised brow. But not only is that probably tactical too, but he also doesn't have a choice. Asta kept his eyes on his best friend in green. With how bleak the situation's getting, he's having a very bad feeling about what's going to happen next. Or worse, what Izuku was going to do next that he knows is a double-edged sword. Izuku finds himself stumbling towards one of the building's intact windows. Turning around, he sees that Katsuki has caught up to him with little to no trouble. Why won't you use your quirk? The explosion slinger questions with more frustration. Do you underestimate me that much? Are you attempting to be just like that idiotic dwarf? Is it both? Izuku's brow twitched at the questions Katsuki was blurting out. But after a moment, Izuku's bangs hide his eyes while sitting up from the window. No. You've been like this ever since we were kids. Katsuki resumes, seemingly not hearing Izuku's response. And no matter what I tell you, you keep letting that Bakasta tell you that you can go far. Have you and that dwarf been underestimating me like that since then when you two kept your quirk from me, you little prick? Izuku grits his teeth at how absurd Katsuki's accusations are. That's not it. You. Izuku paused for a moment before tilting his head back up at Katsuki. Although his eyes were serious, tears can be seen welling up within them. I've always seen both Asta and you as amazing people. That's why I want to beat you and surpass Asta. I want to win and surpass both of you, Bakago. Katsuki's blood started to boil at what Izuku had to say, especially when he used the nickname Asta used on him for the first time. Surpass Bakasta? You already did that ever since you got that quirk you two have hidden from me. Katsuki's rage grows as he clenches his right hand. And you think you can beat me? Don't you dare look at me like that, you motherfucking nerd. All Might looks at Izuku with an astonished face as he watches him and Katsuki charge towards each other. These are the first passionate emotions he's shown other than I want to be a hero. I'm sure this is necessary for you to arrive at the future you're looking at. Right as the two jumped at each other with their fists cocked back, Izuku allows the power of One for All to flow through his right arm while Katsuki prepares another explosive attack in his right palm. Detroit. This is looking worse, All Might Sensei. Ijiro exclaims. While All Might unnoticeably shivers in worry for Izuku, Asta was the only one to see what Izuku was up to if he calculated the trajectory of his friend's arm correctly. As the boy in green got closer, Asta somewhat predicted it when he was able to read his lips say one thing on the screen. Let's go Uraraka-san. This got All Might curious as well since he was able to hear that through his earpiece just before he was about to tell Izuku and Katsuki to stop, leaving the hero curious on what his successor is plotting. Hearing the signal, Achiko grabs hold of the pillar Izuku instructed her to hang on to and prepared for whatever her ally has planned. Back with Izuku, he was about to be ready to have said plan executed. There's still no way I can beat you one-on-one, he addresses Katsuki mentally. But Katsuki was brought to a halt as Izuku uppercuts the air closely in front of him with his One for All infused arm. What came next was a violent shock wave that traveled to the ceiling. And as soon as it came to contact with it, Katsuki is shaken when he sees Izuku's missed attack shatter the ceiling and cause some rubble from it to collapse. But the shock wave didn't stop at that ceiling. The power was able to go through all of the floors while shattering every single window it breezed by, causing everyone at the monitor room to have their jaws drop as they saw the shockwave still fume from the top of the building. Tenya too was affected by the sudden attack. And as soon as he recovered, he gasped to see a large hole created on the floor he resides in with some destroyed pieces of the floor floating upwards because of the shock wave. Seeing the results of the first part of his plan play out, Achiko uses that moment to take away the gravity of the pillar that was taken off, allowing her to use it as a weapon. Sorry, Ida, she says before pulling the pillar back. Improvised special move, Comet home run. With a swing of the pillar, Achiko hits all of the rubble floating in the air like she would with a baseball bat. Why you call that a home run? Ida quizzes in shock as the rubble speeds towards him and hits him all over his body, forcing him to cover his face with his arms so none of the smaller bits get in his eyes. That was the exact moment she used to jump over the gap, affecting herself with her quirk again. Releasing at the right time, Achiko falls towards the bomb and quickly latches onto it just as the rubble stopped hitting Tenya. Got it, Achiko says in victory before hugging it like a body pillow. The weapon is retrieved. Tenya's eyes go as wide as saucers when he sees his opponent hanging onto the weapon like her life depended on it. No! Curse you, heroes! Back with Izuku and Katsuki, the latter looks up at the damage Izuku has caused with a face of utter shock as he heard Tenya's words echo from above. That's what? Katsuki could barely get out. From the start. You were. He looks back at Izuku with a more ballistic expression. You are underestimating me, aren't you? Izuku grunts at the pain shooting in his broken right arm before giving his response. I wasn't going to use it. Because I can't control it properly. My body can't handle the impact. Aizawa-sensei made that clear to me. When the smoke cleared up to reveal Izuku's body, Katsuki's breath is nearly caught in his throat when he saw how badly injured his arms were while his face held a mixture of pain and rage. I wanted to fight you. Like how Asta fights. I really did. But this was all I could think of. Dawn. Katsuki's face has frozen. His expression now showed some fear of his own after what Izuku managed to grunt out. And with what he thinks he's implying, all he could do was stand there and be stunned with what has happened while Izuku slowly falls backward and passes out. All of the students of Class 1A with the mild exceptions of Momo, Shoto, and Fumikage were left astonished with how the battle concluded. Some were amazed by how powerful Izuku's quirk can be, while others were shocked at how badly damaged his arms were just from using it. But none of them were more stunned than Asta. He had a feeling that Izuku was going to use his quirk at a cost of his bones, but he didn't think he'd go that far to the point it would break both of his arms. Sure, he was able to aid Achiko in the capture of the bomb with what he did, but who knows how severe the damage is because of how powerful that uppercut was? All Might, having seen the end results of the match, breathes a deep sigh of relief and brings the microphone close to his lips. And with that, the hero team. After having announced that, the students were still surprised with how the victory played out. Holy hell! Siro utters. The losers are practically uninjured, and the winners are on the ground. Fumikage sighs and closes his eyes. They lost the battle, but won the war, huh? This is training, though, Tsuyu mentions to him. She then casts her eyes onto Asta and saw that he was still worrying for Izuku. She understood why completely, as not only was he his friend, but what the green-haired boy pulled off must have been pretty painful. Meanwhile, All Might returned to the battlefield to check up with the contestants. As he did, he saw two medical robots roll by him while carrying Izuku in a stretcher. To the nurse's office, please, All Might requests the robots. I know, one robot responds as they go to that destination. All Might keeps his eyes on the unconscious Izuku for a moment longer before looking over to Katsuki. And from what he can see, the explosion slinger appeared to be in a trance as his entire body was shaking. My right. Deku predicted it twice. And on top of that, he found a way to win the exercise. Katsuki's body quakes more violently as he then remembers what Izuku told him earlier before defeating him. I've always seen both Asta and you as amazing people. That's why I want to beat you and surpass Asta. I want to win and surpass both of you, Yubikago. More memories emerged in Katsuki's mind. From what Izuku did in the exercise to all the memories of Asta's actions and words, he began to hyperventilate as his mind spirals. Does that mean? Katsuki starts as he sees flashes of Izuku landing attacks on him and his state after defeating him. That even if we fought all out, Deku would completely beat me. His thoughts then went on Asta. He recalled all that he's done from his childhood. From his past performances with his bold declarations roared here and there to his battle with the sludge villain while saving him, and with what he thought Izuku implied before passing out, he even wondered if he too could defeat him. especially with what he saw in Asta's right eye during the sludge villain incident. Just remembering its flash of red got him breathing heavier and faster as he imagined the gray blonde boy staring down at him with his left eye still green. But his right eye a haunting red with a demonic slit pupil he could make out when he first saw the phenomenon occur. It's the very sight that made him wonder if Asta too has a quirk that he hid like he believes that Izuku did with his own. But suddenly, he was snapped out of his dilemma when he felt a hand on his shoulder. Looking up, he saw that it was All Might who caught up to him. "Come along, young Bakugo. It's time to review the results. Whether you win or lose, looking back and learning from your experiences is a part of life." Katsuki was as silent as a statue for 10 seconds before his bangs hid his eyes. He then brushes All Might off of him before making his way back to the monitor room on his own. Although his back was facing him, All Might has an idea of what Katsuki was thinking about but hoped that he won't be too depressed about it. As he returned to the monitor room, All Might looks to see Asta sprinting towards where he came from and halts his movements with a raise of his hand. "Where do you think you're going, young Kurosaki?" "Izuku. I gotta check on him. How is he? Will he pull through?" All Might can see how worried Asta is for Izuku, as did everyone else when they heard the panic and frustration in his booming voice. He's currently being taken to the nurse's office to have his injuries looked at. All Might saw Asta attempt to move again and stopped him by pushing his hand against his chest, making the gray blonde look up at him with a stern look in his widened eyes. "Young Kurosaki, I understand your concerns for your friend, but let me assure you that he will be just fine. Recovery Girl's quirk healed him once, and she will heal him again. You will have plenty of time to visit him after school if it's allowed, but until then, you are to remain here and continue your class." "Understood?" Asta grits his teeth at the serious tone in All Might's voice. While he did have a point with all he said, it didn't stop Asta from wanting to see Izuku and see for himself that he will be okay. But since he wasn't going to be getting out any time, Asta resigns with a saddened sigh. "Yes, sir." Suyu saw how down he felt, but she knew that he has a caring heart, and she found that endearing, as did Achiko, Tenya, Mina, Toru, and Shiro. Ijiro kept his eyes on his friend and held a fist against his chest with tears threatening to leave his eyes, personally finding it quite manly for Asta to hold what he believes is a brotherly bond with Izuku. With everyone settled down, All Might began to conduct the review for Battle 1 of the combat training. "Alright then, as you all know, Team A did defeat Team D," All Might began. However, after watching the battle closely, despite Team A's victory, the MVP for this battle was young Ida. Most of the students were left puzzled by All Might's decision. Even Tenya was shocked because of Achiko defeating him. "It's not either of the winners?" Suyu asks her instructor. "Achiko-chan or Midoriya-chan?" All Might understood Suyu's confusion, as did Asta to some degree from what he studied from actual hero battles that take place indoors. "Well, there is an explanation for my decision, young Azui. Does anybody know why?" "Sir, if I may?" Everybody turns to see Momo with her hand raised in the air. Ida-kun is MVP because he adapted the most to the context of the training. And from watching the match, it appears Bakugo acted on his own because of an obviously personal grudge. And as you stated earlier, Sensei, it's foolish to launch a large-scale attack indoors. In the same way, taking into consideration the damage he received, Midoriya-kun's plan was also rash. As much as he didn't like to admit it, Asta agreed with Momo. In these indoor battles, heroes are supposed to have as minimal damage as possible to the buildings in order to minimize costs of repairs. And as he saw in the footage, Izuku did cause major damage to the floors with that uppercut. But knowing Izuku, Asta knows that he can learn from his mistakes. That's why they're here in UA after all, to be better heroes and better people in general. As for Uraraka, Momo continued. She let her guard down mid-battle, and her final attack was too reckless. If she treated that fake bomb as a real weapon, she wouldn't have been able to do something so dangerous. Achiko sighs and looks down at her feet in shame, making sure to take Momo's critique in mind for the next hero exercise. Momo then sets her sights on Tenya, who's still being floored with her intellect, and resumed from there. Ida-kun had prepared for his opponent's arrival and assumed it would be a fight over the weapon, which made him late in responding to the final attack. The hero team only won because of the fact that this was training. Had this been a real crisis, things would have turned out different. Everybody was amazed at how Momo described the battle between Team A and Team D. And while Achiko was still reflecting on her actions with Katsuki still being quiet with his eyes unseen, Tenya couldn't help but feel pride for himself for how he was chosen as the MVP. Mineta, however, was more focused on her boobs, hearing little of what she had to say. "SH. She said more than I expected," All Might states in his head as he snapped himself out of his shock. Well, young Ida also has parts of him that could be more relaxed, he states before giving Momo a thumbs up. "But other than that, you are correct, young Yayorozu." Momo nods with the number one hero. "We should always start with the basics to develop depth of learning. We must strive to devote ourselves wholeheartedly. Otherwise, we cannot become top heroes." "Man, she's one smart cookie," Zero comments quietly. "Well, it's to be expected of someone who got admitted to this hero course based on recommendations," Kaminari says in agreement. "Alright everyone," All Might says to draw the students' attention. "Let's change locations and start the second match. Tackle this training after thinking about what we've just discussed." "Yes, sir. But first, let's pick who will go next to be the heroes and the villains." All Might proceeds to dig his hands into the boxes without peeking inside them. Seconds later, he reveals the next two teams. "Okay, for Battle 2, Team I will be the heroes, and Team B will be the villains." Asta's eyes broaden a bit at that announcement. "Team I. That's my team. And Team B is." Asta shifts his eyes right and sees that once again, Shoto was staring right at him. This time he was accompanied by Mizo, who also looked at Asta as he knew he was on Team I. "Looks like we're up, Asta-kun, huh?" Asta zips his head left as he felt a familiar soft feeling latch onto his arm and saw that it was a giggling Toru who spoke to him. "Oh, yeah. Alright, Teams B and I, allow me to escort you to your arena." Shoto and Mizo follow All Might first, with Toru walking Asta with them with her arms wrapped around his left arm. He was about to protest that he can walk on his own, but from the right corner of his right eye, Asta noticed that Katsuki was staring right at him with every step he and Toru took. Upon a quick inspection without attracting too much attention, Asta saw that it wasn't the usual angry glare that he would get like the last times they interact. While it did look menacing, this stare appeared observant. Asta ignored Katsuki for now and continued to be led by Toru to All Might. Along the way, Asta felt a pat on his shoulder, prompting him and Toru to stop and look to see that it was Ijiro giving him a confident nod. "Win this, Asta," Ijiro says to him. "Show us what you can do with that raw, manly strength you've displayed to us yesterday." Asta blinked at his red-haired friend twice before his face turned stern and nodded back. "Asta-kun." Turning around, the gray blonde looks and sees Achiko calling to him with a raised fist. "You got this." "Yeah. Kick their butts, Asta-kun," Mina adds while jumping in the air with a cheer. "Please be careful, Asta-chan, ribbit. Don't make the same mistakes Midoriya, Bakugo, and Uraraka made, Asta." Tenya chimes in with a salute of good luck while earning a quiet glare from Katsuki before setting his eyes back on Asta. Asta looked on at the five who cheered him on while the rest of the students watched him with curiosity of their own. Taking their wishes of good luck to heart, Asta smiles back at the five and gives them a thumbs up before turning back around and catching up to All Might, Shoto, and Mizo, with Toru in tow while she shouted, "Wait up!" A minute passes, and Teams B and I have arrived at the building where they were going to fight in. From what Asta observed, it was somewhat the same building as the one Izuku fought in, but was shorter in height and smaller in size with 5 floors max, counting the ground floor. "Wow, this feels intense," Toru spoke as she looked the building up and down before turning to Asta while poking her fingers together. "Do you think we'll be able to win this match, Asta-kun?" Asta nods. "As long as we have a good plan in mind and have our memories locked tight about our opponent's quirks, we might be able to do it. But until then, let's try our best, Toru-san." "Yes, agreed." After nodding with each other, Asta looks down at the ground as he thought about the last battle, the one where Izuku fought Katsuki. It was a brutal and intense sight to behold, but this also reminded him a lot of how serious this can be. Unlike how the last battle went, Asta intends to treat this session like an actual scenario in a hero battle. If this was real, not only will lives be at stake, but there's also a possibility that police and a select few civilians would be out there watching. That's exactly why he needs to be extra careful. Not just because his opponents will be tough, but he also wants to keep the damage to the building to an absolute minimum. Izuku. I may not be here to tell you this now, but let me give you my word, for this match between me and Team B. Asta pauses for a moment to take a deep breath, in through his nose and out of his mouth. Opening his eyes, he sets his stare firmly on the building he and Toru are going to raid to either capture the villains or to disarm the fake explosive, and clenches his fist forward towards the building. I vow to win. That's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this part. If you want more, like this video, hit that notification bell, and maybe even give a comment on your thoughts on the video. With that being said, I'll see you all in the next part.